Hello everyone! I've got a really unique and fun, beautiful story to read to you today. This is the Barnabas Project, and it is a brand new book that a lot of people have been saying wonderful things about since it recently was published. The Barnabas Project is by the Fan brothers, right? So it's more than just one person who wrote this book. There we go. It's a little hard to see because of the glare on the cover, but if you look closely, you can see that there's a little creature in a jar, and the creature looks like it's part mouse, part elephant. So let's find out what this book is about. It's a long story, so get settled in for an enjoyable, nice long book. Barnabas lived in a secret lab. He was half mouse and half elephant, and he had lived in the lab as long as he could remember. The lab was hidden under perfect pets on a perfectly ordinary street. It was deep underground where no one would ever find it. The lab was where they made perfect pets. Except Barnabas wasn't quite perfect. He had been put in a part of the lab called failed projects. His home was rather small, but it just meant that it was easier to keep tidy. The green rubber suits always fed Barnabas his favorite food, which was cheese and peanuts. And yet, he sometimes wondered about the world outside of his little bell jar. It was Pip the cockroach who told them stories about the world above. Stories about a sparkling silver lake, green trees, and mountains that reached all the way to the sky, lit with their own stars. "Maybe someday I'll sit on the grass and look at the stars," said Barnabas. And when he closed his eyes, he could almost see them. "Impossible," said Pip. "Nothing is impossible," said Barnabas. But secretly, he worried that his friend might be right. At that moment, the green rubber suits came in. They turned down the lights and checked each bell jar one by one. They made strange noises to each other. They peered and they poked. They peeked and they prodded. They put rubber stamps on all of the jars. Then they left. "What does it mean?" said Barnabas, looking up at the strange red stamp. "It means you're going to be recycled," said Pip. "That's what happens to all failed projects." "You'll be fluffier afterwards," offered Pip kindly, "and you'll be cuter, and your eyes will probably get bigger." "I like having small eyes," said Barnabas, although he wasn't even sure anymore. Barnabas slumped in his jar. He wasn't fluffy enough, and his eyes were beady, but he liked himself just the way he was. And what if, after he was recycled, peanuts and cheese were no longer his favorite foods? What if his friends didn't recognize him after? What if he no longer cared about green trees and mountains lit with their own stars? "We need to escape," said Barnabas suddenly. The other failed projects gasped, but then they cheered. "Impossible," said Pip. "Nothing is impossible," said Barnabas. He took a step back and kicked as hard as he could. He charged at the glass, but the bell jar was much stronger than he was. Finally, Barnabas made a sad sound with his trunk. Oh, a tiny crack appeared. More! He was free. Then he freed the others. The dust bunnies, Light Up Lois, Bumble Bear, the Ammo Tax, Mushroom Sloth, Wally the Ripple, Stick 1 and Stick 2, Quirt, Moshi, Pompidou, Fertile, Blinky, the Bottle Mogs, Lowell, Percival, Spike, Pinto, Chloe, Peep, Leaf. All of them. You have to understand, they had never been outside of their jars before. This was quite a commotion. They whooped and sang, they chirped and hooted, they stretched their legs and jumped for joy. Oh, you can hear my cats back there arguing. When they calmed down a bit, they peeked over the edge. The floor was far below. "Now what?" said Quirt. "We have to work together," said Barnabas. One by one, they helped each other down. Until they finally reached the floor. "Shh," said Barnabas, and they all fell silent. Then they heard it too. Footsteps in the corridor outside. "Quick," said Barnabas, "we can go through here." He didn't like dark places, but the footsteps were growing louder. Everyone crawled into the vent, with Light Up Lois leading the way. It was a tight squeeze for some of them. The vent led to the most secret part of the secret lab. They all looked up. "We need to run!" cried Pip. But Barnabas couldn't run. The great, sad eye seemed to be looking directly at him. "We can't leave it behind," said Barnabas. "It's scary," said Pip. "It's monstrous," said Quirt. "It's appalling," said Ammo Tax. "It's a failed project," said Barnabas. "Just like us." They worked together to turn the great valve that opened the tank. But it was too late. The green rubber suits had found them. Just when all seemed lost, the tank doors swung open and water flooded the lab. There's the creature that was in the tank. the water carried them. Up to the world above. When they finally opened their eyes, they were in a puddle surrounded by shelves of perfect pets. Everyone ran towards the exit. Barnabas stopped. It was almost like looking into a mirror, except Barnaby's eyes were bigger and his fur was like cotton candy. He was perfect. "Barnabas!" Pip called from the front of the store. "Look, it's the outside world." Barnabas ran to join his friends. He might not be perfect, but he was free. The world was much, much bigger than Barnabas and his friends could have ever imagined. And just like Pip said, there were mountains that reached to the sky, lit with their own stars. "You were right," said Pip. "Nothing is impossible." Do you see the water monster there in the water? Soon they found a place full of sunshine and happy noises, green trees and soft grass. A place that might be home. It wasn't always easy. But they always stuck together. The end. And look, now there's all of the different kinds of pets, not just the perfect ones. I really love this book. I like all of the different creatures and the monsters and this idea of pets that are completely different and totally made up, but a little bit quirky. I hope that you really enjoyed this story too, and I hope that you're reading some really good books that you love as well. Have a wonderful day, and thank you so much for listening.